Hey guys, how's it going? Value Venture Investing here today. So today we're going to be talking about a little bit of mindset. I think this is something very important to look at, especially in today's climate when the stock market has just been going up and up and up, and eventually it's going to have some sort of pullback. So today I'm going to be talking about how you can grow your money exponentially in the stock market. At the very end, I'm going to give you guys a bit of a story, an old legend that really illustrates it really quite well, and I believe it's something that I heard in business school that really put me in the right mindset for investing. So, no spoilers here or anything, but I'm going to tell you it's going to take time, but watch the whole video. I think if you want some good mindset in terms of long-term investing, that this will be a great video for you. So the inspiration for this video was a lot of people that I know who do not know a lot about investing quite often say to me, well, what's the point of being in the market? If it's up one day, it's down the next day, you could lose it all. I've had some people say to me, what's the basically just what's the point whatsoever, right? Why do you even do this? And a lot of people are looking at this very short time periods. Sometimes they're looking at it daily, weekly, monthly. I mean, you're very lucky to see somebody look at it yearly or by a decade. It's not even going to happen whatsoever. So this video gives you some really good perspective on why you need to have a long-term mindset and why you don't need to get too focused on these short-term things. And hopefully with this story that I'm going to give you later, if somebody asks you the same question, you'll be able to maybe tell them a story and they'll be able to understand a little bit better. So when I talk about the market going up and down, I hope that if you're an investor, you've looked through the charts and you've looked through investments in the past and kind of seen what things have done. But I picked out just a couple, just a few instances of types of situations in the past where things were just flat or they went down over long periods of time, because hindsight is 20/20, right? And you do not know what the market's going to hold in the future. So let's take a couple look at these of these snapshots that I took right now, and I'll show you guys what I mean. So the first one I took here was from September 2018 to October 2019. So I started with the most recent because they're going to be closest in memory here, and maybe you remember some of them. This is for basically about a year period, right? I mean, this isn't too long ago. We're seeing here the beginning of 2019. Of course, I was making videos here. What's going to happen going forward? Everyone's scared, and then of course the market rallied after that. But in this time frame, it's relatively flat, and that's a whole year, right? That's a lot of time for a lot of people. To be paying attention to something, people that have a very short attention span, so they might be saying to you, what's the point? I mean, look at that return. It's basically where it started. Also, another horrible time to be in the market, of course, was in the 2000s when we saw the tech bubble and stocks just came down significantly. However, they did recover a bit, but they were also relatively flat for quite some time. So this is August 2000 to about October 2005. These are just really rough numbers. Each one's about 5 years. I'll specify if they're not. But this is a down 20% in a 5-year period. So that's a really tough pill to swallow. And this is another one that's very close in mind for a lot of different people. Maybe people were invested at this time and they saw this and it really put a sour taste in their mouth. But, bear with me, because at the end, I'm going to give this some really good perspective. The next period of time that I put was a relatively long period of time. It was 12 years. Think about that. I mean, time flies pretty quick, but it's 12 years. Roughly 12 years, that is. It's from April 1967 to January, roughly, 1979. And look at that. I mean, we saw the big pullback there, about 73, 74 there. And over this period of time, market saw 4.6% gain. That's garbage, almost flat. I mean, you might as well have had your money in the bank. So in terms of even a little bit longer period of time, a lot of people might be looking at this and going, what's the point of investing when it just goes up and down? If you actually step forward just a little bit more from 1969 to 1978, this is about 8.5 years, right? So we're basically just going a little bit further, and you can see in this roughly 8.5 year period, we were flat. So if you would have got in about 1969, I mean, it wasn't that much different for, again, a relatively long period of time. Now we're going way back here. We're going back to 1929. Oh God, the Great Depression. Look at that fall right there in 1930. We saw it just tank, and the time frame I did here was 22 years roughly. So from July 1929 to October roughly 1951. And as you can see, we had a huge drop, but the recovery was very slow. I mean, it was pretty up and down. Keep in mind that this is 22 years, so you see all these up and downs here. These are all times when people are wondering what's going on. The market's up and down. And on this time, you saw almost a 25% decrease in your investment, and that's a huge period of time. Going back even further here, this one we're looking at roughly from March 1896 to March 1926. So this is 30 years, and man, this is a long time ago. We saw things recover quite a bit, but look how choppy it is here. It's up and down and up and down, and this is, like I said, a 30-year period. And the return on this time was actually not bad compared to some of the other times that I've shown you. It was about 165%, so 2-3 times your money. But keep in mind, that's for 30 years. Now looking back about as far as we possibly can, we're looking at about January roughly 1871 to about 1900 again, about 30 years. And in this time it went up about 70%, which sounds pretty good. However, keep in mind, it is 30 years. To give you some context, if we went back 30 years today, we saw over 1,000% gain. So you're probably seeing a little bit of a trend. I'm kind of all over the place on some of the really nasty ones like 1929 and such. But it appears that as we go forward, it seems to accelerate in terms of growth. So to give you a little bit better idea of what I'm talking about and how hindsight is 2020, let's start way back at this chart here. We're again about, back in the 1800s. And if we start going forward a little bit, keep in mind, take a look at the bottom here, these dates. How much is time's going by? That's like 10 years, right? So look how long that takes. For people that might be investing this time, they're thinking, what's going on? But then say, look, right here, we've seen growth. We've seen it kind of come up significantly. Look at it climb there, and look at it climb again. And at all these times, look at this time period, people are thinking, wow, the market's really high right now over long periods of time. Look at where it was before. But again, as we keep going, look what keeps happening. We see these big dips, and you got to keep in mind, look at this dip. In hindsight, people are probably completely freaking out. But as you keep going, we can see that it keeps growing. Look at this run, and then look at this fall. Of course, this is the one that I was showing you before about the 1930 depression. Imagine how scary that would be to be in there. And in hindsight, we think, wow, it's never going to get this high again. And then, of course, like I said, this took quite some time to recover. But then look what happened after that. Keep in mind, we are just flying through time right here, but look at what happens, right? We're getting to, I think, about the 70s here now. Again, there was a pretty significant drawdown in the 70s. Again, people are thinking, look how long this has been running for. Keep that in mind. And again, we see a lot of turbulence, and the market just keeps climbing and climbing. What we're looking at about here was, again, the 80s, when there was another pullback, which would be a very scary time. But again, look, it kept going up and up and up and up and up. I find this really fascinating to go through. I don't know about you guys. Again, here is the 2000 tech bubble. And again, people are saying, well, look at this run that we've had. It is time now. It is time for things to come right down. And they did come down, but then they came right back up until, of course, the 08 recession. And we saw from there things come up and up and up and up. And there we are right now. So the question is, where do we go from here? I think there's obviously going to be pullbacks. But the main thing I want you to notice about this is that over long periods of time, I can't even get it all on my chart here, but it's relatively small gains. And then we go exponential. This is an exponential curve right here, and I believe that this will continue. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of perspective in terms of how exponential growth occurs in the market. Like we saw, I'll draw it here. Things are relatively flat for a while, and generally speaking, this is how an exponential curve goes. And who knows, we're right around here, and it might keep going, or it might have a little bit of a different angle. Impossible to tell, of course. But the key is that things seem to accelerate over time. and that the returns in aggregate, the stock market as a whole, are exponential. However, short periods of time, that's probably a pretty big period of time, but short periods of time, it is absolutely not exponential, and that's what people don't understand. So how does this relate to my story? So the story that I was going to be telling you guys about is about rice, and it's about an emperor. I believe it was of India, and I don't know how this legend came about, but the version that I heard was that this individual was an inventor, and he invented something that was amazing, and the emperor wanted to reward him for that. And he said, well, what do you want? And the inventor said, well, it's really quite simple. He laid out a chessboard, and he said, on the first spot here, I want 1 grain of rice. And on the second one, I just want 2 grains of rice. And the third one, I just want 4 grains of rice. Now, if you'd watched my YouTube channel, you'd know this is a very bad idea. But what he wanted is every time he just wanted to double all the way up to number 64 down here. Now, if you know anything about math, by the time you get here, the numbers are astronomically large, in the trillions. I haven't done it on a calculator. Maybe if you have one in front of you, you do it right now. Just keep going times 2, times 2, times 2. But the number exponentially grows from something that seems so small. Of course, we're equating the stock market over long periods of time to a chessboard with 64 pieces, but that's generally kind of what you see right there, right? And the story ends with, I think, the accountant or something of the emperor basically coming back eventually and saying, we cannot do this. There's not enough rice in the world to do this. And basically he outsmarted the emperor with just math, right? So I think this is a pretty good story, legend to keep in mind, and to keep in mind how markets exponentially grow over time and how compounding works, especially if you reinvest your dividends, if you reinvest your profits over long periods of time. Amazing things can happen. Of course, you don't have 100, 200 years to let it grow, but you may have 40, 50 years, maybe even more, who knows. If you're in your 20s and you're watching this, wow, start now, and you will see the effects of the market in terms of this exponential growth, and you will see some of that. In terms of going forward, of course, I think we're probably going to see maybe a pullback at some point. When is that going to happen? I don't know. I think we're in the midst of a more long-term secular bull market, meaning things are going to continue to go up. But in the meantime, I think we're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff, but we're in a long-term bull market. But that's a topic for another video. But I thought this is a great mindset thing to put out there, especially with all the context of what's going on today. This video is always relevant, of course, but I'd love to know what you guys think about this. I know for a lot of people it might be kind of a basic concept, but some that haven't heard the story or haven't looked at charts or thought about the stock market this way, this could be a really good video for them. So guys, don't forget to like and comment, subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and let me know again what you think down below. So that's gonna be it for today, guys. I'll see you in the next one.